So I want to respond to a commenter's question about jealousy in men. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. She says, would you say that jealous men are equal parts jealous of your womanhood, the attention and the admiration, and the potential competition that attracts from other men? This is a great question. So I would say yes, and I have done a several part series on jealousy in both men and women, where I've done several videos about this. I have also talked about um, men who have extreme jealousy of women, and that extreme jealousy causes them to become volatile and violent towards women. And I talked about my experience in working in corrections, and how men who are extremely violent and volatile towards women actually want to become women, and how, uh, you know, based on my experience in the Department of Corrections, when men came over there, and I worked with transgender inmates, or inmates who transitioned into transgender, and there is a link, my belief, from my experience, my work experience, between men who are extremely violent towards women and men who actually want to become them. And a lot of that is, they learn very quickly that if I become a woman while in custody, I can get all this attention, sexual attention. I can get all my needs met. I can get money. I can get favors, resources, and things like that. And I'm not saying everybody who's trans while in custody is like that. And I've only seen it with men who transition into women, in that regard. Women, it's a totally different ball game. Um, and so and some people don't necessarily transition all the way. They may say I identify as. Some may take the pronouns, and some become eligible for the full surgery. So there's various levels, but in spite of it all, they still all are identifiable as transgender. No, I had done a video about this, and there's actually, you know, um, movies that have been made about phenomenon like this. When I had done the original post on this, which had gotten taken down by TikTok, several people referred to the movie Dress to Kill with Michael Caine. And that movie is a great example of what I'm talking about. Buffalo Bill and the Silence of the Lambs, so there's examples of this in movies as well. And if anybody else knows of any other great movies, please do let me know. I love having movies to um, provide examples of my takes and what I'm talking about, so it can demonstrate for people what I'm talking about. But I definitely think when you have a man that is jealous of women, it is a huge portion of it is the attention and admiration, which is what we're seeing now, right? There's been TikToks that have gone viral that talk about men who are jumping up on stage at concerts or at the clubs, right? They want to be front and center, and they're actually blocking the women from getting up front. So that is, again, very much attention seeking, right? We also have had this discussion as it relates to current dating culture as well. And this isn't just as it relates to straight men. This is also, there can also be competition between homosexual men and women as well. And I've done posts on that and how that shows up in the workplace and friendships and other areas as well. So I've done pretty extensive conversation think pieces on jealousy and how that shows up. And when I've talked about it, which I think we even saw a great example of that with a recent interview with a man who basically punched down on women during his interview and saying that he was better than women, and he, looked, he could do all the things much better than a woman could. And so you see it in that type of rhetoric. You see it, you could see it show up in friendships as well, where a man is competing for women, with women for the attention of another man, and vice versa. So it could definitely show its face in that way. And just, I want the attention. I want the admiration. I want to be the star. I want people to lust over me. In fact, I think one of the biggest reasons that women are called sluts and whores and all of this kind of stuff, for provocative and things like that, that's really more of a projection for what a lot of people who use those derogatory terms want, or actions, or ways in which they conduct themselves as well. So they may be attention seeking, and so the way that they punch down, or try to make you feel shamed, is by name calling and using these derogatory terms to make you feel shame, so they can be front and center and you can fall all the way back to the back of the bus. These terms are also used to attack women, and may even be the precursor to physical or sexual violence towards women as well. And then, as much as a man may want you for being beautiful, for attracting attention, getting admiration from his friends, there can also be a double-edged sword there when, oh, you're getting too much attention. Other men are attracted to you, and I don't like that. So that can also be used. That's also used in abusive relationships as well, where it's like, oh, it's too much. Too many people are noticing you, and I don't like that because I always want to be the star of the show. In fact, I think a lot of the rhetoric that we hear around some of these TikTok dating coaches is to never try to dim your light or dumb yourself down, and don't outshine your man, right? I think that's part of the rhetoric that we hear, is that you can't be a superstar because that takes away from him, and his ego can't handle it. And I mean, I do think that there can be some truth to that in certain instances. And I've talked about, the trajectory of housewives, and why a lot of the housewives, the original housewives, I'm not talking about the ones now. And I think there's an important distinction. When the housewives shows was originally started, a lot of those women were just regular housewives. They weren't working, right? And then they came on the show, and then they began to get notoriety. They began to make their own money. They became famous. And so there's usually a fast track to divorce, after a few seasons of Housewives. And I'm not going to say that there's not other potential factors, because there certainly can be, but there does seem to be a link between that woman gaining fame, that woman now having her own money and her own independence and autonomy, and now being a star, and the man saying, you know what, I can't handle it. I'm going to start having all these affairs. I'm going to not come home. I'm going to start drinking. I can't take it. So there is a link there. And of course, we've all heard of the phenomenon of womb envy, the envy of the ability to create life, and that also does exist as well. So there can be, there's a theory that men are jealous of the power that the female vagina harnesses, and that carries the ability to conceive and to carry and create, but just the energy and how women are, synchronized with the universe, through the womb, and just how powerful that is. And there's so much more to talk about here than is in a 10-minute video, but I hope that helps. And I have a playlist on jealousy. Thanks so much.